Got cravings that have you eating like there's no tomorrow? We're going to share a recipe with you that will really help with your food cravings, and also an amazing woo-woo approach to dealing with your PMD symptoms. Here we go. Kirsten is full of wisdom. Let me bring her in. Welcome to the PMDD Healing Summit, where the world's top experts share guidance, hope, and next steps for your PMDD healing journey. My name is Charisma Whitefeather, and today I'm joined by the amazing Kirsten Karchmer. And Kirsten is leading a women's health revolution committed to eradicating PMS, PMDD, and cramps. Kirsten is a health tech pioneer, women's health expert, and the founder and CEO of Brazen. She has spent over 20 years, over 2 decades, improving the health, periods, and fertility of menstruators all around the world. Currently, she is highly focused on improving the lives of people with PMDD. She contributes to Huffington Post, Mind Body Green, and Goop magazine. Love me some Goop. And Kirsten is also the author of the amazing book, Seeing Red. And a little blurb of Seeing Red is the one book every woman needs to read, period. Hi, Kirsten. So good to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, Charisma, it's my pleasure. I'm delighted to be here. I can't wait for this conversation.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, let's start off right away because, 20 years you've already been working with people with periods, with menstruators all over the world. So could you share a little bit about your journey into women's health and why you feel so passionate about healthy menstrual cycles?
Yes. So I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when I was 20 years old. I couldn't walk and I slept all the time, and I was teaching linguistics at the University of Texas. And I was taking the Korean Special Forces training because I had taken a job teaching in Korea, and I wanted to sort of just be safe. I'd never been to Asia before. So I was like, well, I'm disabled. I want to do something to like feel safer. And the Korean Special Forces training actually uses a lot of canes. So I was like, well, that's pretty cool. I can weaponize my disability, you know? And one of my classmates was an acupuncturist, and I was having a lot of trouble with my, problems. And she was like, you should really see my teacher. I think he could really help you. And this was 30 years ago. And I was like, I was a punk, a 20-year-old punk. And I was like, that's crap. That's not going to do anything. I've already been to all the most famous doctors. Like, that's like going to a psychic, And she's like, well, even if it has a chance, a 15% chance of helping you, isn't it worth just exploring? And then that was the sucker punch, and I was like, yeah, okay, probably. And ultimately, what the doctor told me that day changed my life forever. It's kind of a long story getting into it, and we only have a short amount of time, but essentially he felt my pulses and was saying, like, first he says, we've been feeling pulses for 5,000 years. So if you played guitar for 5,000 years, do you know how intimate you would become with your strings?
Right.
Because if anybody changed it the tiniest little bit, you would notice. If they changed the string, the tension, the width. He said, that's how we are feeling radial pulses. And he's like, when I feel your pulse, first he says he's feeling my pulse, and I'm rolling my eyes. I'm a complete jerk. He's like, oh, you're so tired. And I was like, whatever, everybody's tired. That's like going to a psychic. I see a man. That's my father who left me, whatever. So he keeps going, and he says, oh, you cannot digest food, which was true. I had like watery diarrhea like 10 times a day. And I was like, okay, well, that's kind of true. And he's completely unbothered by me. He keeps feeling my pulse, and he says, you have muscle weakness? And he didn't see me come in with my cane or chart. He didn't look at my chart or anything. I said, actually, I have multiple sclerosis. And he starts clapping. He says, makes perfect sense. And I said, what makes perfect sense? I have no idea what you're talking about. And he said, when I feel your pulse, the pulse that's about digestion, about the taking of food, breaking it down and turning into energy, and energy into the nutrients for blood, there's nothing. So that's why you feel so tired. That's why you're having watery stools every single day, because you can't convert food into energy. And if you can't make energy, you can't make blood. If you can't make blood, you can't modulate the immune system, and you can't nourish the neuromuscular system. And then I said, that makes perfect sense, because that was exactly how I felt. I always felt so hungry. I was always eating so much fat because I was literally starving to death because the capacity of digestion was so weak. I became an acupuncturist that day. I was like, that's the most interesting thing I ever. So I went off to Asia for a year. I did my work at Seoul National University, the whole time reading everything I could about Chinese medicine. Came back, and in acupuncture college, there is an association for every single sign and symptom. If I get an eye twitch at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that means something, right? But the menstrual cycle, every single piece of the menstrual cycle, from the color of blood, the quality of blood, the volume of blood, the interval between blood, the kind of cervical discharge, the temperatures, every kind of PMS symptom, every kind of Pmdd symptom, each one is a piece of a larger picture that tells us how the system is functioning. And I thought it was a huge light bulb moment for me, because I said, gosh, this does make perfect sense. This is so obvious. Like, if a woman only has 1 day of bleeding, she is not going to conceive because there's no lining.
Right.
But instead of just giving iron, right, which conventionally we'd like, well, there's not enough lining, let's give her iron or estrogen. My training as an acupuncturist, but why doesn't she make enough blood? We keep peeling back the layers of the onion, and I became obsessed with the menstrual cycle. And I think that I'm the only person practically in the universe to ever have this much passion about menstrual blood, but it is so valuable. It's so valuable. And so I did that. I basically became a fertility specialist. I studied Western medicine and Chinese medicine, and I looked to try to understand what's the intersection of, like, I wanted to know what is real integrative medicine, because currently we don't have integrative medicine. We have collaborative medicine, in which you go to your doctor until that doesn't work. And then you're like, shit, I don't have any other resources. Then you go to an acupuncturist, naturopath, whatever. Or you only see an acupuncturist until that doesn't work. And then you're like, shit, I got cancer, I'm going to the doctor. And but what I was interested in, being trained in both, I was like, I want to invent a new kind of medicine that is truly at the intersection, where we have identified the best of Western medicine, the best of Chinese medicine, the best of nutrition, of mind body, of behavioral economics, of technology. And we find how do they actually intersect with each other? How do they harmonize as a new system? And so I spent 20 years trying to figure that out. I saw 200, I saw over 10,000. Well, actually, I helped over 10,000 infertile people have babies. I must have seen 25,000 menstruators in my career. So I had a lot of chances to practice all of this. I would come up with a hypothesis. I would test it with hundreds of women. I'd be like, that worked, that didn't work. I'd come up with a new hypothesis, and so on until I, basically developed a very sophisticated way to help women pregnant. But it was basically fixing the whole system. Yes. And so I launched a software company called Conceivable, which was basically an effort to try to democratize access to fertility care. How can we take what I learned, use technology to put it in people's hands at like 100th the cost of IVF? It's interesting because in Chinese medicine, we say the good doctor treats the patient, the great doctor treats society, but the master knows how to make herself obsolete. Yes, isn't that so? And this is like a guiding principle for me.
Yes.
And when I built Conceivable, my ego was like, well, I want to build something that's at least 50% as good as me. Now, if you take me out of it and you take acupuncture, it could never be as good, right? That was my ego speaking. And then the algorithm fucking outperformed me. No human interaction, no acupuncture. And I was like, first, I was so hurt. My ego was so injured. And then I was like, I just did it. I made myself obsolete. I closed my clinic. I was like, it's not ethical for me to take money from people in my clinic when I can deliver it at a fraction of the cost and it's better.
That is amazing. Take yourself out of it. That's the master.
Yeah.
Because then that ego isn't attached anymore. Like, oh, people, I need to be needed. But it's like, give them the tools and let the people heal. I am absolutely loving that. What I also love what you said about the integration of, like, all of the medicines and the different schools of medicines. And what I also love what you shared, and this really rings true, especially with people who are dealing with PMDD, that you were, you went to the doctor and you had said, oh, I already tried this and I tried this. And then your friend said, well, if there's a 15% chance that this might work, wouldn't you want to try it? And I think that's something that we go through. Myself here as a PMDD sufferer and PMDD hero, find what works, keep trying, keep looking.
Yeah, I think just saying open. I mean,
yeah,
when I first graduated from acupuncture school, it's actually a very hard course of study, and Chinese are so good at memorizing, and Westerners are not, and the amount of memorization was stupidly hard. But then I had memorized so much. So when I first got out of school, I was like, I'm so smart, right? And I would try to explain everything. And then suddenly about halfway through my clinical career, people would say, well, how does acupuncture work anyways? And I was like, hell if I know. We don't even know how that works. What I know is that if I do what I was trained to do, it actually works. Here's some theories, right? It isn't just acupuncture, right? It's the system of Chinese medicine that actually produces the result on it, except for pain. Acupuncture is really good for pain. But I think that what was really interesting that happened after the whole conceivable thing was that I wrote this article for Goop called What Your Period Can Tell You About Your Health. It ends up being the most performant article on the magazine of all times at the time of publication. Crazy high, like people went crazy for this, just basically talking about what are the signals that your period is telling you and how to understand that. But I had hundreds of letters from people, menstruators, the next week or so, who almost said the same thing. I'm 26 years old. I'm not in a relationship. I'm not touching anything called conceivable. I don't want a baby, but I heard you can fix periods. I'm really, really suffering. Can you help me? Like the same email over and over. And because menstrual disorders like PMS, PMDD, and PMS, menstrual pain, are highly correlated with infertility, every person who came to my clinic had really bad periods. So it never occurred to me what the incidence of these problems were. And just for regular PMS and cramping, 82% of people with periods report life-interrupting menstrual pain in PMS. That does not include the PMDD group. So then we layer on the other 1 in 7 with PMDD, and you have I was like, how in the hell can we win a women's movement? How can we transcend any place in society when literally more than 3/4 of people with periods are really sick every month from their period, and nobody is talking about that?
Absolutely.
Nobody is talking or doing anything. And so literally in that moment, I'm like, I'm going to make conceivable obsolete, because if I fix all this stuff early enough, people won't be infertile.
Yes, because it's all connected, I hear.
It's all connected. It's all connected. And I was like, I'm a dick because I'm here focusing on fertility when all these people are suffering from 10, 20 years before they even get infertile. I need to go in and meet the needs of people as young as humanly possible.
Yes.
And so Brazen means to overcome something shameful with swagger.
Let's talk about Brazen. Let's talk about Brazen, because Brazen, I wrote it down because it's so beautiful. Brazen is Chinese herbal medicine to address the underlying cause of PMDD. So let's talk about Brazen. How did you come up with this combination of herbs for PMDD and also PMS and also for cramping?
Yes. So basically, as a clinician, as I mentioned before, I mean, I had a full pharmacy in my clinic. So that meant that I had about 500 different things in my pharmacy. That I was very rigid in my early clinical career. Like, I made medicine for each patient each week. Wow. Like, that's, in my opinion, what personalized medicine is. They come in, they tell me what's happening this week. I identify what the underlying cause is, plus the symptoms. I make a formula. They take it, they come back, and they tell me how it worked, and didn't I modify the formula? Again, peeling back the layers of the onion. And so because, a lot of our patients were dealing with PMS and cramping, they were groups of formulas that I used in combination with other things in a more personalized way. But when you are delivering something to the masses, at least initially, you have to come up with, like, what's the thing that's going to help 80% of the population? If I can't customize every single formula right now, which we will be able to next year probably. What formula is going to make the biggest difference? And the reality is, as well, with either PMS or PMDD, there can be up to 40 different symptoms. You can't make a formula for each of the symptoms, right? One, that's only a Band-Aid, right? But if you can clearly address the underlying cause of the problem, you don't have to treat any of the 40 symptoms. They go away on their own.
Yes.
Right. And so, I mean, like for me, it's hard that because Brazen, our technology isn't available yet. I actually don't believe you should just take herbs to fix your PMDD, because I think that you can also address the underlying cause of PMDD with diet and lifestyle and behavioral health and mindset work. But a lot of people with PMDD are in such bad shape that I typically will say, don't try to make any behavior change for the next 90 days. Just take the formula and get out of crisis. Get some hope that you can start to heal. And as you start finding your Brazen, as I like to say, like we help people get their Brazen back, right? Right there says, like, I get in trouble all the time for, like, sometimes when I was on a podcast last week and the person said, just so you know, I've heard some of your podcasts. We actually don't cuss on this podcast. I was like, that was the most polite and respectful way of like, close it. But yeah, as you know, in the first couple of months, they start feeling better and better and exponentially better. I mean, we've had crazy success. Like in my first 20 years of practice, even PMDD wasn't even a thing for the first 15, right? Nobody was even at all talking about PMDD. People were like, I just go nuts with my period. And the doctors were gaslighting them. And so we don't have the 20 years of historical data on the impact, but in the last year, like for our customers, we offer, like I always say, order it for 3 months, take it for 3 months. If you're not at least 60% better, it's not going to make it perfect, right? Yeah. But 60% for someone who's suicidal is life-changing.
Absolutely.
Right? 60% is far enough to start doing diet and lifestyle and behavioral interventions to bring it up to that, you know, I'm very happy 70, 80, 90%, you mean like management is with no drugs and healing the underlying cause is perfectly fine for me. You know, out of over 1,200, we haven't had any requests for refunds.
Wow.
So that makes me so happy because I've talked to some people in really bad shape, you know, people who were suicidal, people who were cutting themselves, people who were convinced that their families were going to ask them to move out because they literally couldn't tolerate the situation. One of my, I have to call them customers now because I'm not their clinician anymore. It's weird for me to call a patient a customer, but she said, my 10-year-old son came home from school today and said, Mom, we were learning about rabies at school today. And I think you must have rabies. And she was like, what? And he goes, yeah, you like have all the symptoms, like erratic behavior, really mean and aggressive. But then suddenly sometimes you seem totally normal. And she's like, oh, kitten, that's not rabies. That's my PMDD. And I just cried, you know,
it can destroy lives. And that's why I'm so passionate about having you here and all of the other experts on this summit. And so with Brazen, if somebody is on, you know, antidepressants, if they're on a medication, can they still take take Brazen?
The only thing that you don't want to take is our cramping formula if you're on a blood thinner.
Okay.
Because they have not the same, but similar things that you don't want to potentiate one or the other. Yeah, they're very complementary. They're not trying to do the same thing, right? Because like with PMDD, what you want to do is reduce the sensitivity to hormones. Yeah. And in Chinese medicine, you do that by improving liver function. And to do that, you balance blood sugar, you reduce inflammation, you clear heat. That's a Chinese medicine that won't make any sense. And what we found, like, you know, because I'm always looking at the data, like what are the correlations here? What we found was that there was a very high correlation to, like, ideally you have 4 days of bleeding, soaking a tampon or a pad every 4 hours. But we found a very high correlation with people with PMDD having significantly less than that, or very heavy hemorrhagic bleeding with lots of pain and clotting.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime they're on either side of that spectrum, because when you're having, like in Chinese medicine, the volume of menstrual blood is basically a measure of how much surplus you can make.
Okay.
Right. And except except when there's clots. If you have clotting, you will discharge all the blood that you have to get rid of the clots. And then you'll see the clots stop and the blood stops. They'll say, I have 2 days that are so heavy, lots of clots, lots of pain, and then 2 days of nothing. The nothing is really the surplus.
Mm-hmm.
You get rid of the clotting and the whole period goes down to like nothing. And then you have to say, well, why is there no blood? Is it there? Are they a vegan? Are they not getting enough iron rich foods in their diet? Is something wrong with digestion, in which we have to improve the capacitation to turn that into food and blood? How else can we help the liver to improve?
I see. It's a holistic thing right there.
It's all related, baby.
All related. So if I have PMDD, I suffer from the PMDD symptoms. What can I do? What are some tips, from traditional Chinese medicine? Like you just said, looking at the liver, looking at your blood sugar. So what are some practical things that you would tell me to do, other than, of course, supplementing with Brazen and adding that to my routine? What can I do?
Yeah. So especially when you're really in a chronic place where you just half of the month you're really incapacitated, planning really makes a difference, right? Really being prepared around your diet for the second half.
Mm-hmm.
If you're taking Brazen, you're going to feel better soon, but until then you need to be ready, because like me, I mean, I don't have PMDD, but I know when I'm not prepared, I eat bad. Right? I might eat at McDonald's if I'm like, because I just am like, I don't have time and I'm starving and there's nothing else near me, or I'm driving my kid to cheer or whatever. I just got a UPS order, so I hear the dog freaking out.
We love pets here.
Excellent. Well, we'll have a little cacophony in the background. And so one thing is like eating congee. So congee is basically a meal that is slow cooked. You take a cup of organic brown rice, fresh ginger, and fresh like cinnamon sticks, and a little bit of salt. And you put them in, you can put apricots in there too, organic dried apricots. You put it with 1 cup of brown rice, organic, 8 cups of water in the slow cooker or Instapot or whatever, but you don't want to fast cook it. This slow cooks, and cook it for 10 hours.
Okay.
Slow and low. Often you'll see that when there's blood deficiency in Chinese medicine, there will be digestive weakness, which means that when you're eating something very complicated, like a steak and a spinach salad is very iron rich. It takes energy to be able to break that down and get energy from it. So finding foods, congee is not super iron rich, but you can add dried apricots. They're more iron rich than beef. So like 4, you don't need a lot. They are very sugary, which is not good for the blood sugar instability. But by cooking it for so long, you're basically pre-digesting this. So you have something you can live on brown rice practically. You have something that's highly nutritious and high fiber, which helps with hormone transport, right? The elimination of hormones. But again, if digestion's not good, it'll blow you up. But if you congee it, it's very easy. So I have very weak digestion. So making blood for me, like you guys, is really important. So I actually slow cook it, and I take the cinnamon and ginger out because I don't want that in there. And then I take a hand blender and I puree the bejesus out of it.
Okay.
Because mastication is the first step of digestion. So I do try to chew it because that stimulates saliva production, which helps, right? But mastication. So you're doing so much work for your body to be like, this is like almost an IV of nutrition and fiber for you.
Yes, supporting your body to get that nutrition. And I just want to say, I hope you have your journal right here, because this is pure gold congee. So is this also, because I know a lot of people speak about cravings, that they crazy cravings, just having like a pot of congee there and just having some congee might like help with that?
Yes. So that one thing that we didn't talk, and I can send you a recipe that you can put in the show notes if you like.
Yes, please.
So people don't need to take notes. I'll do the work for you guys. So what you want to do is you want to eat this with like a tablespoon of honey or real maple syrup, There's a difference between like grade A and grade B maple syrup. Grade B is not filtered, which means it actually has more nutrients in it, more minerals, more iron. So you could use honey or maple, and then a big fat tablespoon of your preferred fat. So coconut oil or organic butter. You want to be mindful of organic fats because hormones are stored in fat. So if you're not using organic butter, you're actually getting quite a big dump of hormones from not organic butter that you don't need because you guys are sensitive to hormones. And so if you do the congee for about 6 weeks, the side effect should be that the craving should go away. Because you have cravings, because your body is under a lot of duress premenstrually, especially for people with PMDD, and they do require more calories, and you're expending because your body is creating a lot of stress, right? Because the angst and everything, that produces a lot of adrenaline, produces a lot of cortisol, it uses a lot of energy. So your body is craving it. It doesn't want a steak, it wants a Snickers because the advertising is true. Snickers satisfies you because you don't have to work for it.
Yes.
Right? And so by having congee every single day, you will be more hungry. Like, so have your congee in the morning, however much you're hungry for, don't add anything else to it. And then about 2 hours later, have a cup of like high quality beef bone broth. That's your second like IV of nutrition that you don't have to work for. Bone broth is basically melted marrow, which is the juiciest, most nutritious, but like blood building thing that you can consume without any effort.
Wow.
And your hair will start to like your hair and nails and skin. I recommend like 2 cups of bone broth a day. So one in the like mid-morning, one in the afternoon. So if you usually have a cup of coffee in the afternoon, just first have your bone broth and then have your coffee.
Ooh, so we're getting some beauty tips along with some PMDD tips.
It's because it's all connected, right?
Yes.
Your
Yes.
PMDD, like I always said, like getting MS was the best thing that ever happened to me. I learned what it was like to be very sick. I learned what it meant to do something that I didn't believe was possible and see something that my doctor said after like I hadn't had an MRI in about 10 years. And after all this had happened, and I was at my neurologist, I had some jaw trouble and they were seeing if I had TMJ or whatever, not TMJ, trigeminal neuralgia, because it's associated with MS. And they did a head scan and he's like, I thought you had MS. And I do. I said, I do. I've had MS for 15 years. And he says, it's weird. You don't have any lesions in your brain. I wonder if we misdiagnosed you, even though I had previously had lesions in my brain.
Wow.
Right. That's impossible. It's not like I'm cured, right? I can easily, if I'm not managing my P's and Q's, just like you guys, it is a relationship, but it is an opportunity. I always say I'll probably live to 100 because I take impeccable care of myself. Because if I don't, I can't walk. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't, you could become suicidal.
Yes. Yes.
Right? You're highly motivated to care for yourself in an impeccable way because you know what the consequence is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm hearing that taking care of ourselves is something where we can help reduce our PMDD symptoms. So the congee, what else can we do as PMDD sufferers? One more practical tip that you can share before we're almost done here with our 30-minute awesomeness? What's another thing we can do?
This is the most important, actually. In all the work that we did and all the studies that we followed up, the mind work had a bigger impact than everything. Not hugely, like everything when we did a retrospective analysis of everything that we intervened with people with fertility and whatever, they all made significant contributions as a whole. But the mind work was 5% higher, right? Where we think that that's going to be less. And so my latest work that I've been doing on the mind work is from Joe Dispenza. Mm-hmm. He wrote a book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And I think that when you are chronically ill, it is very easy to have a habit of being sick. A relationship with your habit to being sick. Mm-hmm. And like I did some work with the landmark form a long time ago. And in the advanced course, they ask you like, what's one question you want to solve? And they always talk about like whatever's persisting in your world has a payoff. And my MS was a lot better, but I still wanted to get that last bit, you know? And I was like, how could MS have a payoff? That I was a competitive gymnast, like surfer, tennis player. How could being disabled be a payoff in any way? I just couldn't see it.
Yeah.
And it turned out that actually it's very valuable to have a chronic illness like MS because it allows you to avoid taking responsibility for anything. That's so powerful.
Yes.
Because never did I intentionally use it to avoid something. But if I didn't feel well, I could call my professor and say, I'm just not well today. Can I take the test next week? And they would often bring me food or come over to my apartment and give me acupuncture. Or, you know, if I was afraid to do something, I could say, I don't know, I'm afraid that's going to give me a flare up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that when you are dealing with chronic illness, that it's easy to get in the mindset of fear, right? When you guys are waiting to ovulate, you can get addicted to the habit of being afraid. Joe says you feel the feeling and you get a dump of chemicals. So you feel afraid, you get adrenaline, the adrenaline goes down, your subconscious says, get afraid again, we want more of that. You start behaving in ways that sabotage your success because of your addiction to that beliefs, to that it's not to a belief system, it's a chemical addiction. And through his meditation, he's like, okay, well, that's how you survived and that worked. What will you invent? How will you invent the way that your life works, that it looks, how your body functions, how your mind functions? And when that happens, what will that feel like? What is the feeling that you will feel when you have that? And spend as much time during the day feeling that feeling so that you addict yourself to that fucking feeling, which will support you making the changes. And I've been working on mine for about a year. I would love to share mine because it's been really powerful process. And I think when you give a concrete example, that helps people to make it very real. So my goal, like Joe says, like we're all energy, which makes sense as an acupuncturist, that we're mostly electrons. Electrons are 99% energy and only less than 1% matter. If that's true, everything's very fluid, right? Yeah. And we exist in a field, call that God, call that the field, call it the source, whatever you want, of energy. That's indisputable. Einstein proved that. And everything that we do affects that field in a positive or negative way. And so I got really clear that I identified all the things that are part of my habits that keep me from elevating the field. Being afraid lowers the field. Being mad lowers the field. It keeps me from serving, which lowers the field because more people are suffering. Having ego lowers the field, right? Having too much ambition, which I am guilty of, lowers the field and keeps me from serving in a pure way. So in my thing, what I envision is I'm sitting there and there's barnacles stuck to me. And the barnacles are all those things that I just listed. And he says, what is the thing that you imagine your new life looks like? And I take a deep breath in and I kind of act like I'm pooping and all the barnacles pop off and I catch on fire. I mean, just like, I just catch on like good fire, not bad fire, like burn at the stake witch, like fire, like pure energy, just pure limitless energy. And when that happens, I can so feel it, like there it is, right? And when that happens, like moths to the fire, I can magnetize anything I want. And I'm an alchemist. So I take whatever I can bring in through my magnetism and I use my alchemy and then I put it back out into the field 1,000 times stronger. And then Joe says, what does that feel like? Well, gosh, this is a kind of meditation. If you figure this out for yourself, I've been a 20-year Buddhist meditator and it's always like, how much longer, how much longer, how much longer? I get in this meditation, I'm like, fuck, it's over. I want to go back there. I want to spend more time there. And you might think this is complete hooey, right? I'm a scientist, right? The reality is that you are going to spend time in one direction or the other. You're going to spend time worrying, being mad, being angry, and you're going to drive yourself, for sure, the data are clear, down that path. Or you can spend time making up a fantastic story and addicting to yourself to things like dopamine, and you're going to drive yourself down that path. The data are clear. To me, it's a lot more fun to imagine that I'm catching on fire and that I'm completely limitless, and that anything that I take from the source, I can put back 1,000-fold.
Yeah.
And so working on this, double downing on this work in the first 2 weeks, and forcing yourself to just, his meditation, he has a morning and an evening meditation, just forcing yourself to, even if you don't do it, to just listen to it.
Okay, yeah.
Give yourself permission to those 2 weeks when you're really in a bad place. Like, I don't even have to fucking do anything. I do have to, and I do it. He says, sit down. I'm lazy. I do it when I'm laying in bed in the morning when I'm snuggling with my husband. Right? Because he lets us snuggle for hours, and this meditation is about 40 minutes. And I get too restless in the morning. I'm like, I gotta go do something. He's like, don't leave. So I put my headphones in, I put the meditation on, and he just snuggles me. And then I do the meditation while we're snuggling.
Amazing.
So don't hesitate to like just reinvent it. It's the most powerful work I've done in my whole life.
Wow. What is this? Is this meditation called, or is it in a book? Is it a program? How do we get this?
Read his book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. He has tons. If you want to just dip for free, go to YouTube. He has tons of YouTube videos. Watch the longer ones because they're snippets from his courses. He has a book, Breaking the Habit. Then he has a meditation that you can order from his website. It's like $15, super cheap. What I will say is he seems real new age. And for some people, that's a super turnoff, right? And because like he's a hypnotherapist, he was a chiropractor turned hypnotherapist turned neuroscientist. So when you're doing this meditation, he's actually helping you do self-hypnosis. So they play binaural beats, which helps bring your mind down, which is actually, if you don't even do anything but listen to the binaural beats, that's good for your PMDD because it changes your brain frequency. So it's like, right? And if you're not into that world, you're going to be like, this is like witchcraft. And then he uses like hypnosis voice, like, no, I want you to, right? And it's just going to seem super witchy and weird. And he's going to say, because this is where a lot of people that I've worked with have gotten like turned off because they didn't understand. He's going to say, at the beginning, he's going to say, I want you to imagine your eyes. Okay, you can imagine, because he's saying this is something that is form, right? Your eyes. Imagine, so what can you latch onto that is real? Imagine your eyes. Okay, now imagine the space between your eyes. What he's asking you to do is like go a little bit outside of form. Can you feel anything between your eyes? Actually, something's kind of there. And then he's going to say, imagine your eyes. Imagine the space between your eyes. And now imagine your eyes and the space between your eyes in space. And what he means is, can you take, you can feel your cheeks, you can feel stuff. Can you take that feeling just a little tiny bit outside of your body? And then he keeps saying it in different parts of your body. And the goal is like, can you keep just extending your perception outside of your physical form? And the more, and then it's like, can you do it to the ends of the walls in your room? Can you do it to your state? Can you imagine your existence in space? And can you like, the way I made it is like, can I imagine I'm floating in the ocean and I've just dissolved into electrons? And I'm just spreading out through the ocean, floating on the ocean. And then you start doing the work. You imagine that state because your brain is wide open. Yeah. But if you get tripped up on this little bit of weird space stuff, you'll get turned off and be like, that's too weird. I can't do it. But if you can let him do the meditation and because he keeps saying over and over, it's time to become a nobody. Nobody. Wow. Right. So powerful. Yeah. So powerful. ultimately the break, because we're building the first, like, basically we're building right now is an app that basically looks at all of that system and then helps people, like, customizes the intervention for them. This is what you need to be doing. This is what you need to be doing. In the end, I'm going to do it with placebo, because that's how you make it free.
Next level.
Sorry, I went over so long, but I think it's important and valuable for people.
So valuable. It's not cold here right now in LA. I literally have goosebumps because what you shared was just so valuable. Also, like, putting, sometimes with PMDD, I feel when I can put some space between myself and what my mind is going through right now, that can really help me to not lash out, to not act out, but to just be with and witness. So I loved how, he's making us go into space a little bit, because we're kind of removing ourselves from the experience and expanding. So it really rung true. Thank you. And if you're not very woo-woo out there, then maybe that is something to look into and to open to. And I think, like you said, Kirsten, if there's 15% chance that it might work, if it might bring you some release, then why not try it out, right?
Well, I would say for Joe's work,
yeah,
it's free to listen to 2 hours of him talking while you're driving or walking, and you'll either resonate with it or won't. The book has a lot of science, so even the book does not feel woo-woo. It's when you get into the meditation that there's like a woo-woo edge to it. I just did his advanced course, which historically used to have to go somewhere for 5 days, and I'm a single mom, so I didn't ever want to leave my kids, but now you can do it online. It's $300. So if you get into this, I do recommend the advanced course, and I don't have any affiliation with that. So just a devotee.
Thank you so much, because part of this healing summit is I just wanted to bring all these different ideas in so that people can pick and choose what might work for them. So thank you for bringing this Joe Dispenza spin in here. That was really, really awesome. And so we are at time. We're at overtime because it was just so juicy and so good. And I just want to this was just so great and so juicy. I'm going to put all the links, things that we talked about, some notes. I'm going to put it right below the interview. And I know you have something very special to share with everyone here at the PMDD Healing Summit. Would you like to speak on your gift that you're giving us?
Yes. So if you would like to try the Brazen formula, it's basically called the PMS formula. I know if you have PMDD, you're like, this is not PMS, but the underlying mechanisms are very similar. So it's making a huge difference. If you want to try it and get 50% off your first month, you can use the coupon PMDD Summit 50. I have to make that coupon right now, so I'll send it to you. I forgot. If you want to just order the 3 months, if you just like, it's much cheaper if you order the 3 months. I'll go in and refund you what the difference would have been on the 50 off. I think it's like $20. Just send me an email. The chat bot on the website goes to my cell phone. So if I can help you personally in any way, very happy to have a chat with you. Literally, I'm really double downing on investing as much time and energy on really trying to help people with PMDD. I feel like your condition is like so incredibly impactful. And I think probably out of every condition that is out there, one of the least addressed. And actually, I think that the situation in the medical community can be abusive around it. I think I've heard enough experiences, not intentionally, but people just gaslighting and telling people PMDD is not a thing when we know that actually is a thing. And so anyway, so if I can help in any way, it is my deepest pleasure to serve and be of service to you guys.
Thank you so much. It really comes through your wisdom and your big heart. And thank you so much for sharing that wisdom and that big heart. Everybody, thank you so much for being here. And I want to give the last words to you, Kirsten. Any last words that you might have for someone who is dealing with PMDD?
Yes, I'm going to tell you what my father said to me probably 10,000 times at least. Everything is possible. Everything is possible until you allow your mind to tell you a different story, and then you live into it.
Wow, amazing.
Be careful what you allow your mind to tell you. Read Joe's book. It will screw you up in the best way.
Ooh, oh, I'm here for that. Yes.
And let me know if you read his book and you like it, message me on the chat bot on Forever Brazen. I would love to hear your thoughts, if it was helpful, if you're doing the meditation. I would love to organize like a group meditation. I would like to guide one. So if you want to organize that, Charisma, I will lead it, because I've kind of modified my meditation versus his. So happy to do that too.
Oh my gosh, yes, we are going to do that. Everybody keep your ears, your peepers open. I'm going to message you about that. We are going to do that. Thank you so much for offering that. That's going to be great.
When you get people meditating together, you get like a, multiplier of 10 on the effect on the field. So
I can believe that. Community is so important. Thank you so much. Woo, all right, signing off here at the PMDD Healing Summit. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for being here. And remember, as Kirsten's dad said, anything is possible.
Everything, everything.
Everything, not even anything. Everything is possible. I love it.